This is Perry. We've been loving it. I noticed that we're getting oil dripping right here on the same spot on the tug. And you see the little puddle on the floor. And normally piston-powered airplanes, especially radials, there's always that saying, if there's no oil on the floor, there's no oil in the engine. And you expect some drips, and we put pans, and turbines, not so much. I mean, an occasional something, but this is more than acceptable. The other thing is, on the Pilatus, there's a drain tank right here, and there's lines that come from a couple spots on the fuel system, fuel pump, and then oil, and from the base of where a lot of seals are on the engine, all the way from up front, on the back, starter generators, and they all kind of come tee together in these Ys, and they all dump to this tank. And what you want to do is dump that valve and not see a bunch of oil come out. If you haven't been dumping that valve and you start seeing oil here, then the can's probably full and it's overfilling and dumping out and running back on the plane when you're flying and putting these oil drops here and here. So that's, and down on the tail, up into the, what we call the hellhole where the battery is, but that oil will just travel. And on this plane where I really started to notice it besides the tug was I even saw it on top of the wing, which means it's somehow coming out on here and the prop watch is catching those little drips and flipping them up and just parking it on the wing. So the trick is there's so many places that could be coming from is narrowing it down. So one of the common kind of ways you can do that is you take the fitting off all the drain lines that would catch. So if you have a starter generator comes into a spot and you want there's a seal there, and if oil's starting to leak, you don't want the oil to come into the starter generator and start shorts or fires or burn things up. So if it starts to leak, it can drop down into a little catch basin, and there's a fitting, and that drains it out so leaks don't cause in-flight panics, you know, sweaty pilots.
I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire.
And so you can undo those fittings and just check if they're wet. So we went through and checked them. They all seem pretty dry. This plane's been around for a while, so sometimes you find a little bit damp. Oil doesn't dry well, especially in enclosed environments. You're not totally sure, but we found one that we thought, this one seems a little bit like legitimately wet, not just oil residue, but a drip on the finger. And so we take that line, we fall it down, we open it up at the fitting where it Ys into here, and you can put a bag on it. Zip tie it really good, and then you could run your engine. I know some people will take it to the air and fly it. I don't want to get into a debate whether that's a smart thing to do or not. But all it is a line that comes out and drains out the bottom of the airplane. What we did is we hooked a bag to it. We said, let's put it through a good long run. And we fired up the engine and we took time testing all kinds of other systems. And when it was done, this is what we found. And that is a full bag of oil.
Here's Johnny.
So normally this line would come off the bottom of that starter generator. You see this one here better. If oil came in here, it'd come down here, come into this Y and come down to our oil can. But this one here, when we took that fitting off, was wet. So that right there is why my best tug has oil on it and why the wing had a little oil and the belly had a little oil. And so it's good to catch these. It's not critical, but it is if it's this much oil in short amount of time. And so the reason you have the can is if you see a few little drops in there every now and then, it's like it may have just been vibration during startup or something, let oil pass past the seal, a little piece of debris that got in there, a little oil kind of started to escape and the debris came out of the seal and it sealed itself up. So there is such a thing as seals that kind of fix themselves. But that, no way, not gonna fix itself. That is a legitimate seal on the starter gen. This is a secondary generator. So now we know the problem. We're gonna pull this off and see what's in there. I suspect we're gonna find a bad seal, but we're gonna get the part next day aired and pull it off and see what it looks like and stop cleaning grease off of our best tug. We'll update you tomorrow.
24 hours later.
All right, it has been a day and it started out just really quite stressful. Started out last night when we realized, okay, we've got to get parts here. I've got to get a mechanic because I'm not allowed to work on certified aircraft. I don't have the license that's required.
Not to worry, I have a permit.
This just says I can do what I want.
And as we're looking into the seal, I'm realizing you need a special tool that I don't even have to pull the seal. And so I don't have a part, I don't have a tool, and my usual mechanic isn't available. So I called one of the guys over at Covington, and they do all of our engine rebuilds or repairs for our Pratt & Whitney engines. They're an amazing shop and facility. If you have fly turbine-powered aircraft, you know who Covington is. So, but I called one of their guys, one of their mechanics I just have on my phone. I'm like, hey, can you give me advice and give me some help? And he's like, sure. And incidentally, I'm in the Utah area. I've got work in Idaho, so flying into Salt Lake City, I'm going to be driving around. I'm like, when? And he says, now. I'm like, you got to be kidding. So he gets on the phone, gets parts from their main offices at Covington, the tools, gets that next day aired, gets on with Pratt & Whitney, gets a seal next day aired. That was yesterday. And then, so today, I'm like, is it really going to get fixed? What's going to happen here? And tools show up in a box on time. Parts show up from Pratt, and they're here. And then Covington's there. Hey, I'm at your airport. Your hangar's locked. And I'm like, what?
Is that everyone?
What, you wanted more?
So we get in, he pulls the starter generator, gets that tool in there, pulls the seal out, and drum roll, boom, 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 mystery solved. It wasn't actually a bad part. Unfortunately, the starter generator, if you're not careful when you put it in, you can smack it. You can damage seals when you do installs. So I've always had such an amazing experience with Pratt & Whitney and Pratt & Whitney engines. They just work, they hit their numbers, they hit their fuel flows, they hit their torque, and they just do it until it's time for overhaul. This particular engine goes 3,500 hours before overhaul, and now in the new Pilatus NGX with FADEC, it's 5,000 hours. That says a lot about the reliability of a Pratt & Whitney if they can push that overhaul to 5,000 hours by having a FADEC, so they don't have to worry about pilot error inducing damage or resulting in a 3,500 hour overhaul, which is still like mind-blowing that an aircraft engine can go that long. So this seal was, you can see where it was hit.
I'm being shot. I'm being shot.
It just, humans do human things, and they always will. So I can't be mad at anybody. This starter generator was installed recently, and so this wasn't a leak that developed over time. It wasn't a premature failure of a Pratt & Whitney part. It's just the starter generator needed to come out and get reinstalled and regular work and maintenance, and it got clipped. And so I'm super happy that it was found early, that we saw the trace oil on the floor and on the wing. I love the fact that turbine engines and Pratt engines are so reliable that if there's a little drip on the floor, you're like, wait, I got to do something, because that's not normal for a Pratt. So the seal went back in. I don't have any footage of that because, quite frankly, we were too busy at work today, but Covington got me taken care of. They got the install done, they got the paperwork done. We did the runs, did a flight, checked everything, and it's fixed. Like, it's time to send it to the air for another, 3,000, 3,500 hours or so before we have to worry about it. We'll do a hot section inspection, of course, but I just want to say it's mystery solved, repair done, and in less than 24 hours, I mean, literally from discovering where the leak was coming from, Covington came through, Pratt & Whitney came through, and human error, which is not uncommon, but it's fixed, and we're back to the air. So we'll take Perry back to the skies, and let's get to traveling.